I used to think nights at the bus stop were uneventful, just the soft hum of the streetlights and the occasional car slicing through the silence. But that evening felt different, heavy with a kind of anticipation I couldn't name. Maybe it was the trip ahead, maybe it was him waiting beside me with his hands shoved deep into his pockets, pretending he wasn't cold. His name is Adrian. We've known each other since high school, long enough that I can read his moods by the way he tilts his head, long enough that he can finish my sentences when I trail off mid-thought. I tell people he's my best friend, and that's true. But there's another truth I've never said aloud, one that burns quietly at the edges of every laugh, every look, every moment we share. The bus was supposed to take us to the next town over, where a weekend hiking trip with some old classmates waited. I didn't really care about the mountains or the nostalgia reunion. What I cared about was being stuck in Adrian's company for 2 full days, away from routines, away from anyone who could interrupt. I told myself I'd keep it casual, keep it safe. Just friends. Always just friends. But standing there beneath the amber glow of the street lamp, I noticed the way his breath clouded in the chilly air, the way he rubbed his hands together before flashing me that lopsided grin. "You brought snacks, right?" he asked like he always does before any trip. It was our ritual. He'd forget, I'd remember, and we'd split the stash halfway through the ride. "Of course," I said, trying not to stare too long at the curve of his smile. "You think I'd trust you to be responsible?" He nudged me with his shoulder, casual, playful. Too casual. My pulse jumped anyway. The old policeman on duty gave us a long look, muttering something about the bus running late, about it not being safe to linger too long at night. His warning barely registered. All I could think about was the way Adrian's knee brushed mine when we sat down on the cold bench, a small contact that he didn't bother moving away from. It was nothing. It was everything. I should have known then, this trip was going to change something between us. Adrian and I had been circling each other for years, orbiting like 2 planets that never quite collided but couldn't pull away either. We met in 10th grade when I got paired with him for a history project, and while I panicked about deadlines and citations, he drew a cartoon of Napoleon with a massive sword and declared, "That's how we'll get an A." Somehow we did. Somehow he'd been beside me ever since. What made Adrian different from anyone else was that he made even the smallest things feel alive. A walk home turned into a debate about which chip flavor was superior. Waiting for exam results became a bet about who would cave first and check online. He could make me laugh when I didn't want to, and I could calm him when he burned too bright. We fit. On the bus, our shoulders brushed whenever the driver took a turn too sharply. Adrian leaned back against the seat, his dark hair falling into his eyes. He grinned at me, lazy and unbothered, like we weren't crammed into a rattling old bus with 20 other people. "Bet you forgot the good snacks and just packed granola bars again," he said. "You wound me," I replied, digging into my bag. "I brought sour gummies, chocolate, and those peanut butter crackers you inhale like oxygen." He gave a low whistle. "Marry me." He said it without thinking, a throwaway joke, but the words slid under my skin and settled there, buzzing. I forced a laugh, tossing the crackers at him. "You'd only marry me for my groceries. And your terrible taste in music," he added. We fell into silence for a while, watching the dark fields blur past the windows. His knee brushed mine again, and I tried not to read into it. Tried not to imagine what it would feel like if he reached for my hand instead. The first sign of trouble came 2 hours into the ride, when the bus driver pulled over at a gas station and announced the engine needed a quick check. Quick turned into not so quick. The sky was already threatening rain, the kind that smelled sharp and heavy, ready to burst. Adrian hopped off the bus and stretched, looking around like it was an adventure instead of an inconvenience. "At least it's not snow," he said. I followed, pulling my hoodie tighter. "We're stranded in the middle of nowhere. That feels worse than snow." He glanced at me, smirking. "You and your need for control. Maybe the universe is telling you to chill. Maybe the universe should have waited until we weren't 3 hours from civilization." He laughed, the sound warm enough to ease the irritation out of me. That was Adrian. He had a way of disarming me, turning tension into something lighter. We sat under the overhang of the gas station roof, waiting out the drizzle that quickly turned into steady rain. Our classmates groaned about the delay, but Adrian nudged me with his elbow. "Remember that camping trip junior year? The one where your tent collapsed in the middle of the night?" I groaned. "Don't remind me. I woke up with mud in my hair. And you nearly cried because you thought a raccoon was stealing your shoes." I shot him a look. That raccoon was huge. Basically a bear. He grinned, shaking his head. "I let you sleep in my tent after that. You kicked me all night, by the way." "I was cold," I said, though the memory warmed me now. The 2 of us huddled awkwardly in a tiny tent, laughing even when we should have been miserable. As the rain thickened, soaking the road, I realized we might be in for a repeat. The hiking cabin we'd booked only had so many sleeping bags. If the weather got worse and we had to change plans, we'd probably end up sharing again. The thought shouldn't have made my chest tighten. But it did. I glanced at him, catching the way his eyes lingered on me before flicking away. He didn't say anything, but the silence felt charged, like he'd almost spoken and thought better of it. I wanted to ask what was on his mind. Instead, I looked down at my hands, pretending to pick at a loose thread on my sleeve. Because the truth was, I was scared of the answer. The rain didn't stop. It only grew heavier, pounding against the gas station roof until even the chatter of our classmates faded beneath it. By the time the bus driver admitted defeat, engines shot, "They're sending another, might be a few hours," everyone groaned in unison. A few people retreated back inside the bus to nap, but the damp air made it feel stifling. Adrian tugged on my sleeve. "Come on. Let's wait it out over there." There was a narrow covered alcove along the side of the station, just wide enough for the two of us to squeeze into. It kept the rain off, but barely. I hesitated before following, already imagining the inevitable closeness, the way my body would betray me in such tight quarters. Still, when he grinned over his shoulder, I went. Of course I went. We huddled against the brick wall, shoulders pressed together. His jacket brushed my arm whenever he shifted. The smell of rain and asphalt mixed with the faint scent of his cologne, something warm, woodsy, and distracting. Adrian sighed, stretching his long legs out in front of him. "Guess this is what we get for trusting public transport." "You're the one who swore it'd be cheaper and more adventurous," I reminded him. He smirked. "Adventurous doesn't mean comfortable." I rolled my eyes, but the corner of my mouth betrayed me. Being stuck here with him, pressed close while the storm turned the world silver and gray, didn't feel like the worst thing. It felt dangerous in a different way. A shiver ran through me, partly from the damp chill, partly from everything else. Adrian noticed instantly. He pulled his jacket off and draped it over my shoulders without hesitation. "I'm fine," I said quickly, though I didn't move it away. "You're shivering." His tone was matter-of-fact, but his fingers lingered a moment too long on my shoulder as he adjusted the fabric. Casual, probably unthinking, but my skin buzzed where he touched. "Thanks," I mumbled, clutching the jacket tighter. Silence settled between us, thick with everything unsaid. I stared at the rain, at the way droplets blurred the neon lights, while my thoughts spiraled. I wanted to lean into him. I wanted to close the distance that had never felt so small. But if I did, if I gave myself away, what then? Would he laugh it off, ruin the easy rhythm of us? Would I lose him? Adrian broke the quiet first. "You always do that thing with your sleeve when you're nervous?" My head jerked toward him. "What thing?" He reached out, gently catching my wrist. His thumb brushed over the frayed cuff I'd been worrying between my fingers. "This. You've been doing it since forever. Exams, soccer tryouts, that time we almost missed our flight." The warmth of his hand around mine was both grounding and electric. I swallowed hard, forcing a laugh. "Guess you noticed too much." "Guess you give me too much to notice," he said almost absently. Then he seemed to realize, releasing me with a sheepish grin. "Anyway, just saying." But my pulse was still thrumming where he'd touched me, as if his skin had left an imprint. Hours crawled by. When the replacement bus finally arrived, it was older and smaller, crammed with more people than seats. Adrian and I ended up shoved into the back, sharing one bench that barely fit us both. His thigh pressed against mine, unavoidable this time. "Cozy," he murmured. I tried to angle myself away without making it obvious, but the movement only made him lean in closer. "You smell like my jacket now," he teased, nose wrinkling. "Then you smell like me," I shot back before I could stop myself. The words hung there, heavier than I intended. His eyes flicked to mine, sharp and searching, and for one dizzy second I thought he might call me out. Instead, he chuckled softly and looked away. But he didn't shift, didn't give me space. If anything, his leg pressed firmer against mine, like an unspoken choice. By the time we reached the cabin near midnight, the storm had soaked the trail leading up the hill. Everyone groaned when they realized we'd have to bunk together more tightly than planned. Half the sleeping bags hadn't made it off the broken bus. "Guess we're doubling up," Adrian said, tossing me a look I couldn't decipher. My heart stuttered. "Right. Yeah. Makes sense." Inside the cabin, the air smelled of wood smoke and damp clothes. People claimed corners, unrolled what bedding they could salvage. Adrian dragged one sleeping bag to the side wall, patting the spot next to him with casual certainty. I stood frozen for a beat, my brain scrambling. Sharing a bench on the bus was one thing. Sharing a sleeping bag with the warmth of his body pressed against mine all night was another. Don't overthink it, he said, reading me like always. We'll just pretend it's that camping trip all over again. Yeah, I whispered, my throat tight. Just like before. But it wasn't. Not anymore. As I slid into the space beside him, the zipper closing us into a cocoon of heat and closeness, every nerve in me went on high alert. His shoulder brushed mine, his breath stirred the hair at my temple, and I knew this wasn't something I could keep pretending away much longer. Because the danger wasn't in the rain or the broken bus or the cramped cabin. The danger was right here beside me, smiling in the dark, utterly unaware of how much he meant. The sleeping bag was designed for one person, maybe two if they were children or had absolutely no sense of personal space. But here we were, two grown men crammed shoulder to shoulder, our legs brushing, the heat of his body seeping into mine. At first, I kept my arms rigid at my sides, terrified of any accidental movement that could betray what I was feeling. My heart was already pounding, louder than the muffled rain outside. I tried to breathe evenly, tried to think of anything other than the way Adrian's exhale warmed the back of my neck. You're stiff as a board, he whispered after a while, amusement threading his voice. Relax, man. I don't bite. Easy for him to say. He shifted slightly, trying to make more room, but the motion only pressed us closer together. His arm brushed mine and stayed there. Not by accident, there was no space for accidents in here. I'm fine, I muttered, though my voice sounded strangled. No, you're not. I could hear the smile in his tone. You get this robot thing when you're uncomfortable. Like if I poked you right now, you'd snap in half. Despite myself, I huffed out a laugh. Maybe I would. Guess I better not test it then, he teased softly. We fell into quiet again, but not the comfortable kind. This silence felt weighted, like it was holding its breath. I tried to close my eyes, but my thoughts refused to still. I kept circling the same terrifying truth, that I wanted more. That I'd wanted more for years. And that if I didn't say something now, I might never get the chance. But fear was a vice on my chest. What if I ruined everything? What if he pulled away? As if sensing my spiral, Adrian spoke again, his voice low. Do you ever think about how long we've been doing this? Doing what? The trips, the sleepovers, the dumb bets. I don't know. Just us. My breath caught. In the dark, I turned my head slightly toward him. All the time. Something in my tone must have betrayed me because he shifted, propping himself up on one elbow. I could feel his eyes on me even though I couldn't quite see his face. What do you mean by that? He asked carefully. Panic surged. I scrambled for a safer answer, but nothing came. My defenses felt flimsy under the closeness, under the way his voice had gone soft. I just mean we've been friends forever. You know. Feels weird to imagine not having you around. There was a pause, then a faint laugh. But it wasn't his usual careless laugh, it was quieter, almost nervous. Yeah. Same. The silence returned, but it was different now. My skin tingled where his gaze lingered, and I could almost hear the words I'd never said echoing in my head. I don't just want you around. I want you. Adrian, I whispered before I could stop myself. He hummed in response, waiting. I hesitated, my heart ricocheting. If I tell you something, can you promise not to make it weird? Depends on what it is. His tone was light, but there was a hitch beneath it. Like he already knew. I swallowed hard. My hands clenched in the sleeping bag. I think I like you. Not just, my throat burned. Not just as a friend. The words hung between us like fragile glass, ready to shatter. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't take them back. For a long moment he said nothing. Just the sound of rain tapping on the roof, my pulse roaring in my ears. Then softly, finally, my head jerked toward him. What? He laughed again, that nervous edge still there but warmer now. You have any idea how long I've been waiting for you to say that? My brain stalled. You what? He shifted closer, so close our foreheads almost brushed. His eyes were dark in the dim light, steady on mine. You think I drag you on all these trips just for fun? You think I let you hog my snacks and kick me in your sleep because I don't like you? You never said anything. Neither did you. His hand found mine under the sleeping bag, fingers brushing tentatively, testing. Guess we were both cowards. My chest felt like it might burst. Relief, disbelief, and something fiercer than either flooded through me. So, you. Yeah, he whispered, intertwining our fingers properly now. I like you too. Way more than I should have let myself. I let out a shaky laugh, the tension bleeding out of me so fast it left me dizzy. God, I thought I was going to explode keeping it in. Same. He squeezed my hand, his thumb tracing small circles on my skin. Do you know how many times I almost said something? But then you'd laugh at some stupid joke or you'd fall asleep on my shoulder and I'd think, nah, don't risk it. Not if it means losing this. His honesty cracked something in me wide open. That's exactly what I was scared of. For a moment, we just looked at each other, everything raw and unguarded between us. His face was inches from mine, his breath warm on my lips. Can I? He hesitated, his voice barely audible. Can I kiss you? The question unraveled me. All the nights I'd imagined this, all the times I'd told myself it could never happen, and now here he was asking. Yes, I breathed. And then his lips were on mine, tentative at first, almost shy. But the second I kissed him back, the tension of years melted into something fierce and certain. It wasn't perfect, our noses bumped, we laughed against each other's mouths, but it was real. It was ours. When we finally broke apart, both of us were grinning like idiots in the dark. He rested his forehead against mine, still holding my hand. Worth the wait, he whispered. Yeah, I said, my voice thick. So worth it. The rain outside softened as if even the storm had quieted for us. Inside the sleeping bag, pressed against him, I felt lighter than I ever had. Like I'd finally stopped holding my breath after years underwater. And for the first time, I let myself believe this wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was the beginning of something new, something we'd both wanted for longer than we'd admitted. We didn't sleep much that night. Not because the cabin was cramped or because the rain kept drumming against the roof, but because neither of us wanted to let go of the moment we just cracked open. Adrian lay on his back now, our hands still tangled under the thin fabric of the sleeping bag. I was curled on my side facing him, watching the faint rise and fall of his chest. Every so often I caught myself smiling like a fool, unable to believe this was real. You're staring, he whispered, eyes still closed. I jerked slightly. No, I'm not. Aha. He cracked one eye open, smirking. You always do this thing where your nose scrunches when you're trying not to laugh. You're doing it right now. I groaned, covering my face with my free hand. Great, you're going to use all my nervous tics against me, aren't you? Absolutely. He tugged my hand away and laced our fingers tighter. His thumb brushed my knuckles absently. Besides, I think it's cute. The word cute made my stomach flip. Coming from anyone else, it would have embarrassed me. From him it felt like a secret gift. We fell into an easy silence again, this time different, looser, warmer. I wasn't second-guessing every inch of space between us anymore. There was no more pretending. You wanted this too. Still, a question nagged at me. So, what happens now? Adrian turned his head to look at me, his expression thoughtful in the dim light. Now, we stop being cowards. We actually let ourselves have this. And when we're back home? My voice was quieter, the worry slipping through. It won't just be us in a sleeping bag. People are going to notice. He squeezed my hand steady. Let them. I don't care. Do you? I hesitated. The truth was, part of me did care. But the bigger truth, the one beating louder in my chest, was that I cared more about him. Not if it means losing this, I admitted. He smiled, soft but sure. Good. Because I'm not planning on letting you go. Heat rushed to my cheeks. I ducked my head and he laughed quietly. Wow, you're actually blushing. Didn't think I'd ever see the day. Shut up. No way. This is going on the record. The great unflappable you, undone by one kiss. Undone. I repeated, narrowing my eyes at him. You're the one who couldn't even ask me without whispering. He pressed a hand to his chest in mock offense. I was being romantic. I bit back a laugh, shaking my head. You were being dramatic. Same thing, he said with a grin. Then softer, but hey, I meant it. Every word. That quiet sincerity tugged at something deep in me. I shifted closer, resting my forehead against his shoulder. I know. For a while we just lay there, tangled together while the storm eased into a soft drizzle. I let myself breathe him in, the warmth of his skin, the faint smell of rain still clinging to his hair. Every detail felt heightened, like the universe was sharpening him in my memory so I wouldn't forget this moment. You realize, Adrian murmured eventually, that you're never living down the fact that I confessed first. I lifted my head to glare at him. Excuse me? I said it first. No. You hinted. I was the one who called it out. That's different. I poked him in the ribs, making him squirm. You're impossible. And you love it. I froze, the word hanging in the air. Well, he hadn't said it like a slip. It was teasing, casual. Still, my chest clenched around it. I didn't say anything, just pressed closer, hiding my face against him. He didn't push. He just tightened his arm around me, content. In that cocoon of warmth and whispered banter, I realized something. We'd spent years pretending, hiding behind jokes and inside references, too scared to name what we already had. But now there was no going back. And the truth was, I didn't want to. Morning came with pale sunlight filtering through the cabin's crooked shutters. The storm had finally passed, leaving the air sharp and clean, the scent of wet earth drifting in through the cracks. Around us, our classmates were groaning awake, stretching out sore muscles after a night on the hard floor. Adrian and I hadn't moved much. At some point, we must have shifted in our sleep, because when I opened my eyes, I found myself tucked against him, my head on his chest, his arms still wrapped securely around me. For a moment, I didn't breathe. I just listened to his heartbeat, steady, calm, real. He stirred, blinking groggily before focusing on me. A slow smile spread across his face. Morning. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Morning. Comfortable? He asked, his voice low and teasing. Too comfortable, I admitted before I could think better of it. He chuckled, pressing his forehead lightly to mine. Good. Because I'm not planning to let you go anytime soon. The world around us came back into focus. People rustling sleeping bags, someone swearing about wet socks, but none of it touched the small bubble we'd built overnight. We didn't need big declarations or dramatic gestures. It was enough to wake up like this, enough to know we'd both chosen it. Later, as everyone packed up to head for the trail, I caught Adrian watching me with that lopsided grin I knew too well. He waggled his eyebrows. So, are you gonna carry my snacks this time too, or do I get promoted to responsible adult? You're never getting promoted, I shot back, but my chest warmed at the familiarity of it, the way we were already slipping back into our rhythm, only now with something new pulsing beneath it. When the group set off, the ground still slick with rain, Adrian reached for my hand. He didn't look at me when he did it, didn't make a joke out of it. He just laced our fingers together and kept walking, steady and sure. It was a small thing. To anyone else it probably looked casual. But to me it was everything. A promise. A quiet claim. I glanced at him, and he met my eyes briefly, the corner of his mouth twitching upward. We didn't need words. Not then. The trail stretched out ahead of us, winding through wet leaves and glistening branches. And for once, the unknown didn't scare me. It felt like the perfect metaphor. Slippery, unpredictable, but something we'd navigate together. I squeezed his hand and he squeezed back. Maybe there would be challenges waiting when we returned home, questions, awkwardness, the shift of something everyone had always assumed was just friendship. But right then, with his fingers warm in mine and the road unfolding in front of us, I didn't care. This wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of where it might lead.